This was a defensive clinic, I would say. They pretty much shut down everything that Michigan State was looking to do besides that first play, right? Dani Dennis-Sutton was a maniac. He only had 2 tackles, but they were 2 sacks, and it just felt like he was all over the field, causing pressure, just making it really difficult for that Michigan State offense to get anything rolling. Eli Drinkwitz is who I am hearing as a name to potentially be the next head coach. I think him and Hartline and some other guys are still in consideration, but I think it is extremely unlikely for this scenario to happen, but just something to keep an eye out for the remainder of the season. And that name is Kalen DeBoer, the head coach from Alabama. Welcome back to another episode of The Road to Happy Valley. I'm your host, Noah Malone. So today's episode, I want to talk about, obviously, the game against Michigan State. I want to give you guys a little bit of a coaching update, coaching search update, and then I want to talk about Penn State basketball. Yeah, the basketball season has started. They've only played a couple games, but I want to talk a little bit about them, sort of what to expect this season. And then I'll continue to follow along with them, providing you guys updates on how they're doing throughout the year on a weekly basis. So with that being said, let's get into it. Game against Michigan State. Before I talk about the game itself, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of background information on the land grant trophy. So this trophy symbolizes the shared history of 2 land grant universities in Penn State and Michigan State. These were institutions that were established under the Morrill Act of 1862, which provided federal land to states to fund colleges focused on agriculture, science, and engineering. So the trophy itself was created in 2010 and was unveiled before the game between Penn State and Michigan State. Penn State did win that game 31-22. The all-time series between these 2 teams is in Penn State's favor. After yesterday, it was 20-18-1. And Penn State's held this trophy since 2022, and it will stay in Happy Valley until at least 2027. These teams do not play each other next season. And 2027 is the next year that Penn State and Michigan State will play. So that's your history lesson for the land grant trophy for today. But now into the game, Penn State did win 28-10. This was a game that I thought Penn State would actually be able to win. It was a great win. Didn't start off exactly how anybody would have liked. The Nittany Lions got the ball, went 3 and out offensively, -4 yards, and then they punted it away to Michigan State, where Michigan State's first play from scrimmage was a 57-yard touchdown. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, great, here we go again. It's going to be another game where it's just an absolute battle, and who knows what's going to happen. But turns out I was wrong. That play from Michigan State was pretty much the only offense they were able to generate the entire day. They were held to 229 yards of total offense, and I think this was probably the best game that the defense has played all year. This was a defensive clinic, I would say. They pretty much shut down everything that Michigan State was looking to do besides that first play, right? Dani Dennis-Sutton was a maniac. He only had 2 tackles, but they were 2 sacks, and it just felt like he was all over the field, causing pressure, just making it really difficult for that Michigan State offense to get anything rolling. Defensively, as a unit, they tallied 5 total sacks, which obviously that's great, and they pitched a shutout in the second half. So besides that one play, this defense was smothering, and they looked really good for 99% of that game besides that one play. And it does really seem like they're starting to get comfortable in this Jim Knowles defense, and he's starting to figure out what works for them and getting more chemistry between the units. So that's a great sign moving forward. Offensively, the game plan is still the same as when Terry Smith took over, and that is getting Kaytron Allen the football. He had 25 carries for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. The highlight being the 26-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. That was pretty much the dagger to seal the deal here in that game. Something worth mentioning: Kaytron Allen. He's been killing it. He's currently third all time on the Penn State rushing leader list behind Evan Royster and Saquon Barkley. He's 139 yards from being in first place with 2 games left this year. So I would be shocked if he doesn't get it, but that's just something to keep an eye out on as we progress through the last few weeks of the season. Offensively, running the football, one thing that I noticed is there is a lateral pitch play that I felt like Penn State was calling a good amount. They had success running it the first time. Basically, what this is Grunk and whoever's at running back are lined up in the shotgun. Use this for example, Kaytron Allen, the ball gets snapped to Grunk. It gets tossed to the right to Kaytron, offensive lineman pull, and Kaytron runs up outside and around the tackles. It worked the first time, and it felt like they went back to the well with that play a little too often, because after that first rush, it did not really work. So something that I am going to keep an eye on, and something for you guys to keep an eye on too, is if that's a play that they're going to continue to run and continue to use as a almost staple of the offense, keep an eye out for plays to be worked off of that. And what I mean by that is maybe like a fake pitch and it turn into a passing play of some sorts. I think there's a couple different options that you can run off of it, but I was expecting at least a passing play from that formation, from that play at some point, and I don't think we saw it today, but maybe we see that next week or the week following. The passing game pretty much will continue to be a work in progress, I think, throughout the rest of this year, and that's okay. As Grunk begins to get more comfortable in that offense, I think we'll see more and we'll see better from him. I don't think he played bad. I think he had a couple nice throws. More specifically, that deep ball to Devontae Ross, that 75-yard touchdown, that was a great throw. Just dropped it right in the basket for Devontae. And that's a play that we really haven't seen a ton this season, is that stretch down the field, long touchdown pass. So that was refreshing. Devontae did have 2 catches, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. As I mentioned, highlighted play was that 75-yarder from Grunk. There was another touchdown that he scored on. It was like a jet motion touch pass to him from 4 yards out, walked right in. Good game from Devontae Ross, and another step in the right direction for Grunk, I would say. So, end of the day, I am extremely happy for Terry Smith. We all saw the Gatorade bath. They picked him up, and it was great. I'm really happy for him. Couldn't have been a better way to get a win in your land grant trophy debut. So, and that's a thing that he highlighted throughout the week too, is he mentioned wanting to win this one and holding on to the land grant trophy. So really happy for him. Really glad that they could pull this one off. And it's been a tough year, as we all know, but finally being able to chalk one up in the win column after a brutal stretch throughout the middle of the season is a great feeling, right? I mean, these wins are tough, and they're tough to come by this season, especially. But I'm proud of these guys for continuing to fight, continuing to battle, and winning one this past weekend. So good for them. Another thing is the way that this schedule is playing out, they have an opportunity to play in a bowl game. They have to win the next two games to finish the season 500, and I think it's attainable. They play Rutgers and they play Nebraska, and I think those are two winnable games. I think if they go out there, they take care of business, that we could see this team playing in a bowl game. I don't know which one, but with the way that this season has panned out and the struggle that they have had throughout this middle portion of the year, being able to play in a bowl game would feel like a small victory. And it would be light at the end of the tunnel in a dark period throughout this season. So still a little something to play for. Obviously wasn't what we were looking for coming into this year, but for them to sort of bounce back, be able to play in a bowl game would be a small victory that I'm sure all of those guys are looking forward to, and keep that in mind as these next two games play out. So happy for them. Let's just keep that in mind. There is a chance for bowl eligibility and a little something to play for. Next, the update on the coaching search. So I don't have a ton on this. There is one thing that I will get to, but it pretty much seems like Mike Elko, he was a name that I talked about in the previous video. It pretty much seems like he's going to be off the table. Texas A&M with a huge comeback win this weekend versus South Carolina, and then pretty much signed a 6-year extension right after the game was over. So congrats to him. Congrats to Texas A&M. Pretty much rules him out, in my opinion, after this weekend. Louisville lost to Clemson over the weekend, so that pretty much takes them out of playoff contention. Louisville was a team that I mentioned last week. Georgia Tech, they pulled off a late win versus Boston College, which keeps their playoff hopes alive, pretty much ruling out their head coach as well, but still a couple weeks for them. And then lastly is Missouri. They did win, but it's 7-3. I don't think they really stand a chance to make the playoff. Eli Drinkwitz is who I am hearing as a name to potentially be the next head coach. I think him and Hartline and some other guys are still in consideration, but the more that I'm hearing is Eli Drinkwitz's name as the next guy. Just something to keep in mind. But the name that I am considering here is, now I want to preface this name with this. I think it is extremely unlikely for this scenario to happen, but just something to keep an eye out for the remainder of the season. And that name is Kalen DeBoer, the head coach from Alabama. Alabama is a fan base that holds themselves to an extremely high level, and rightfully so, after the amount of success that they've had with Nick Saban as head coach. If they were to miss the playoff again, would they consider moving on from Kalen DeBoer? My gut reaction is absolutely not, but Alabama fans are crazy, and I get it. The amount of success that they have had in the 2000s has been great, and these last 2 years losing these games and potentially finding themselves on the outside looking in for a college football playoff appearance is not something that they're going to accept. Alabama didn't make it last year, and there is a scenario where they don't make it this year. They have 2 losses, and I think one more loss could potentially put them out of an SEC championship appearance and out of a college football playoff appearance. So just something to keep an eye on. Do I think, like I said, I have to emphasize this. I cannot emphasize this enough. I don't think they will move on from him, but that is a different run program over there. So it's not something that I would fully rule out, but just something to keep an eye on. Lastly, I want to get into Penn State basketball. So first, I want to go through the roster a little bit. This is a team that lost a handful of guys to graduation, transfer portal, and the one lone NBA draft prospect. they're extremely young. 8 freshmen, 1 sophomore, a redshirt sophomore, a junior, a redshirt junior, and 1 senior. Coming into this year, a lot of the experts picked Penn State to finish pretty much at the bottom of the Big Ten. The Big Ten is a very difficult and very deep conference, plus the overall lack of experience from this Penn State team are 2 of the main contributors as to why they were picked so low. I think they're probably a few years away, but you never know what can happen once you get out there and start gelling and playing games. So there are some upside throughout this team. I think that Caden Mingo is an extremely talented player, and some of the international guys that they brought in are expected to be important parts of this Penn State team moving forward. Now, they are 4 games in. They're off to a good start. They're 4-0, which is extremely crucial for a young team before you head into Big Ten play. So just stack as many wins as you can in your non-conference and sort of go from there and put yourself in a spot where even if you aren't as successful in the Big Ten, you can still put together a decent season. So just want to run through some of the wins that they've had so far. They won 76-68 versus Fairfield, 87-43 versus New Haven, 80-71 versus Navy, and most recently 83-69 versus LaSalle. As of right now, it kind of seems like Mike Rhodes is still trying to get a feel for some of the best combinations out there on the court. Besides Mingo, I think he's just going to be a crucial part of this team for the foreseeable future. Including Mingo, through 4 games, there's 9 guys that are playing 10 plus minutes a game, with him averaging just over 30. The 3 guys that are atop of the minutes and contributions for this team are, I apologize if I butcher your name, but Malai Tunka and Freddie DeLeon the 5th. Through 4 games, these guys have stepped up as what seems to be the 2 other guys alongside of Mingo that are going to sort of be the core for Penn State basketball this season. So through 4 games, Tunka is averaging 15.5 points, 2.5 boards, just over 3.5 assists, and is playing about 30 minutes a game. DeLeon is averaging just over 12 points, 3.5 boards, and 2.5 assists per game. And then Mingo is averaging 15.3 points, 5.5 boards, and just over 4.5 assists. In all 4 of those games, those guys have been the ones to have consistent impact. And like I said, seems to be like a good foundation for this club moving forward. They've also had some guys step up around them, which is going to be extremely important for a young team as they begin to find their identity and gear up for the Big Ten. So going to rattle off some of the performances from a few other guys outside of those 3 names that I previously mentioned. Against Fairfield, Eli Rice contributed 10 points and 5 boards. Ivan Urich contributed 13 points and 4 boards. Against New Haven, Josh Reed, the lone senior on the team, had 14 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists, with Dominic Stewart contributing 18 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. These last 2 games were primarily majority contribution from those big 3 that I mentioned earlier. Against Navy, Jonathan Mingo. Caden Mingo had 16 points, 7 boards, and 4 assists. Tunka had 13 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists. DeLeon had 19 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. And then Josh Reed chipped in 11 points, 6 boards, and 6 steals. Yes, 6 steals. Not something you hear every day, but that's a heck of a defensive performance out of Josh Reed. And then LaSalle, another solid game for that trio of Mingo, Tunka, and DeLeon. They contributed to 50 total points, 9 total boards, and 14 assists, while getting 11 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists from Ivan Urich. So yeah, it's been the Mingo, DeLeon, and Tunka show throughout the first 3 games. And that's great. That's something to build on. First 4 games, excuse me. And that's great. That's something to build on. Like I said, this is a very young group that is off to a good start. It seems like they have something there with that trio. It'll just kind of depend on how the rest of this team comes into shape and how they develop throughout the rest of the year. So keep an eye on the Nittany Lions throughout this upcoming week. They have 2 games, one on the 19th against Harvard at 6:30 on Big Ten Plus, and then on Saturday against Providence at 4 o'clock on True TV. Should be a good season. Those guys will want your support, will love your support. I think Mike Rhodes is in the process of building something special over there for the basketball team. So get on the bandwagon while you can. Might not be this year that they have the amount of success that they're planning on, or that they're hoping for. But I think that this could be a crucial year for a very young team that could be very good in years to come. So keep an eye on them. Go show those guys support. That does it for me for today. Go ahead and follow State Media on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter. That's where you're going to be able to find all your Penn State information. With that being said, we are.